Hey, and welcome to 20 Minutes Self Development with me, your host, Tam Dillon. This podcast is all about focused, effective self development, specifically for healing practitioners, space holders, and intuitives who want to do the work behind the work. In each episode, I'll introduce you to a key concept, reflection, or tool that's designed to strengthen your inner capacity and support the integrity of your practice. In just 20 minutes, we'll go beyond surface level growth and into the real work that makes you a stronger, steadier, and more embodied practitioner. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to 20 Minutes Self-Development with me, your host, Tam Dillon. And in this episode, it's going to be part of the broader conversation that I'm having through the month of July. And I'm looking at what it means to be a healer, to be a space holder, to be a medicine person, specifically in a time where old structures have fallen away and the new ones, way more than they should be, feel either way too hollow or way too commercial to actually hold us properly, in a way that feels safe and stable and grounded. So today's reflection is on something that I've lived personally, and something that I'm sure many of you are probably quietly carrying along with you as well. And that is what it means to walk this path with our elders. In another time, if we were marked for this kind of work, someone would have noticed. Okay, someone would have guided us. They would have, arrived at, if we were 10,000 years ago, they would have arrived at our little hut front door and been like, okay, cool, you're next in line, come, let's go, let's go do the work, I'll show you how it's done. But most of us are walking this path without that village, without that mentorship, and without ritual, without elders. And that's not just a logistical gap. It's I suppose you could see it as almost like a spiritual wound, that we're all learning how to live with. It's a disconnection point for a lot of us. In traditional cultures, going back 10,000 years ago, or but today, in today's day and age, in 2025, in traditional cultures, healers aren't self-selected. Like, you don't, arrive at the elder's front doorstep and be like, yo, what's up, guys? I want to be the next shaman in the village. Okay, they would laugh at you and be like, bruh, that guy there is next in line. Like, go do what you're supposed to be doing. They would have been, or if they would have been, and they are, they're recognized. And for a lot of them, reluctantly, in my years of reading tarot, particularly in Johannesburg, I read for a number of different African cultures, and there was a good portion of them that they either came to see me because they knew that they were called to the path, or they were suffering certain disruptions in different aspects of their life. And were coming to me to see what was happening. And that's when the ancestors were like, hey, calling, they need to walk the path. And for a lot of them, when we had that conversation, like, there was fear in their eyes. And looking back at my own experiences, I get that fear. I recognize that fear. Because this path is not sunshine and daisies and, yoga trips to the Bahamas. It's grueling and it's hard. Okay, there's duality to this path, and there's sometimes extremes to that duality. So yeah, the reluctance. And for a lot of us, we are called through severe illness, shaman sickness. Like, there's a conversation we should have one day. A lot of us are called through illnesses, massive disruptions in our lives, huge upheavals. Like, some of the stories I've seen of people of how they got to their path, and it's like, wow, how are you standing? But I understand that we're shoved through the fire so that we know how to take others through the fire. Because if you don't know how to walk through the fire, how the heck are you going to lead anyone else through? You know, you're going to walk through like a scared mouse, and all the people behind you are going to be like, Lord, like, are we safe and secure here? So for a lot of us, there's also the dreams, the visions, the hearing things that when there's nothing physically there, the conversations with those on the other side, the uncanny knowings. And the difference here with traditional cultures where your healers and medicine people are recognized and they are taken through their process through ritual and initiations, is that they're shaped slowly over time. You know, they don't go and do a weekend retreat in the Bahamas and, you know, now they're a qualified shaman. Like the healing work does not work that way. Like, let's cut through the glamour. Okay, let's cut through the westernized fluff. That is not what healers look like. That is not what healers do. That is far from what the work looks like. And this shaping, yes, done slowly over time, and it's done through witnessing, through instruction, observation, and direct guidance from elders who have walked this path before them. Elders that have already walked through the fire. They know how to walk through the fire, so they can take the next person through the fire. And so we then get trained to do the same thing. And the only difference is that we don't have the elders. that is the disconnection that for a lot of us that we are experiencing. So if we were born 10,000 years ago, we would have had that. We would have had that instruction. We would have had that person to hold our hand through the fire and be like, this is how you walk through it. This is how you do the ritual properly. For a lot of us, I know for myself, a lot of my work is I'm doing something and I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't necessarily need to know why I'm doing it. I just know that it's the right thing to be doing, that uncanny knowing. And invariably down the line, I'll be shown what it was for and why it was done that way. But, you know, it would be a hell of a lot easier if I had someone to be like, okay, cool, you do this and then you do that. Instead of having to like really learn to slow myself the hell down. So that I have enough space and capacity to truly listen to those kinds of downloads. You know, with traditional cultures and walking the path in a traditional sense, the advantages is you have containment. There's accountability. You've got frameworks, not just to protect the people that are being served, but to support the person doing the serving. So you're supported through the process. But for most of us, like we don't have that. We didn't have that. We could be 20 years down the path. We could be 2 years down the path. Like it's something that we are missing. We're raised in systems that don't know how to hold sensitivity, intuition, spiritual knowing, compassion, authenticity, genuineness, and just spirituality in general, connection to the divine, connection to source. You know, the society that we live in, the systems that we have, there's no space for this. Like it has been, it's been weeded out over the centuries. Like let's go back to 300 AD at the start of the church and state not being separated. We can go that far back. But over the centuries, it's been weeded and pushed out through witch trials and burnings, laws being written in, and a lot of false narrative about what a medicine person is. Like, my goodness, medicine people have been persecuted horrifically over the centuries because of the systems that we have, the Western systems, the colonized systems. Their structures and frameworks have pushed us out. Like, we don't fit here. And that's why for most of us, we struggle to understand our place. We're the weirdos. We're the ones that are different. We're like, what the heck is this experience that I'm having? Have I lost my mind? And it's because the frameworks for the majority of us has broken down poorly in our favor. We're not seen, we're not named, we're not taught how to carry what we know, how to live in a way that honors what we feel, our true authentic selves. For most of us, that's you're spending a lot of time in silence and contemplation and connection to the source to, do the work that you need to do. But Western society is like, bitch, where's your 9 to 5 job and are you paying your bills on time? So we don't fit into these structures and these frameworks. That's why I say this is where our disconnect comes in. That's why so many of us feel ungrounded and destabilized and like, how do I fit? Suicidal, depressed, anxious, panic attacks. We struggle to get our work going because we battle through things like imposter syndrome and am I really meant for this? And am I really seeing all these things that I'm seeing? Am I really having all these dreams and these visions? Because we don't have that validation that our framework should be having for us. Lord, our paths would be way simpler. That we would get there a whole lot faster. I'm sure the work would still be hard, but we would get there a whole lot quicker. So we've had to build our own pathways. Many of us have become space holders and teachers and tutors and guides, and not through initiation, not through traditional initiation. For a lot of us, for me, I know my initiations have come from the ancestors. Like that is who has initiated me throughout the years. And golly, I think the traditional route may have been a little bit less severe because, sometimes I don't hear what the ancestors are telling me, and they're, sometimes they need to shout. So, this is how a lot of us are figuring our pathways out, is just listening and hoping that what we're listening to is the ancestors or spirit guide or source. And, because we're missing that person in front of us saying, hey, this is how it's done. And for a lot of us, we're doing this because of the way we're coming to this work. There's immense amount of pain. Like we're going through a lot of hard burnout. I had a conversation with a practitioner the other day about burnout being it's a white person thing. It is a Western colonized issue, and that is where burnout comes from. And for us as practitioners, we're struggling through burnout because of the systems and the frameworks that exist, the society that we have constructed for ourselves as a whole. Like it's not here to support us, it's not here to validate us, and it's not here to assist us. Like we're triangles trying to fit into squares here with these structures and these frameworks. We have this because we've had no one around us that could teach us, show us. While that's made us very resourceful. Like I will say, there's the disadvantages, but there's the advantages. It's more, possibly makes us more resilient, makes us more resourceful. It's also left many of us feeling very unanchored, horribly ungrounded, and always in motion, always adjusting, never quite knowing if we're doing it right. And I think that's why a lot of us are like, maybe I need to do a new modality. Maybe I need to do my degree in psychology so I'm more credible. Maybe I need to do this license, or maybe I need to work with these clients. We're constantly action, doing in the hopes that we will get the path and the work right. And that's exhausting, man. Like here's burnout. here's where burnout comes in. That's one of the parts. There's no rhythm, there's no circle of elders, there's no seasonal rites of passage, there's no initiations that will hold us in place. So we carry all of it ourselves, and often we carry way more than we should. Without elders, we often look for validation elsewhere. Sometimes it's through training after training, sometimes it's through our clients, through constant visibility, through trying to be everything to everyone, just to feel like we're real, like we fit, like we're doing the work. There's nothing inherently wrong with seeking education or building a practice. Like, come on, we're on the path of a consistent education. Okay, we're going to constantly be learning, but balance. You know, when it's driven by the absence of being seen, that's when it becomes hollow. If we, this is where we end up, overextending, second guessing, and holding too much without a container to hold us in return. And that's where many practitioners, this is the burnout. And it's not because we're weak, but because we're trying to hold an entire lineage that we don't even understand for ourselves inside one little body. Okay, like we don't know what the fuck we're doing. for a lot of the path, we really don't know what we're doing. Like, we're winging it a lot of the times. We're intuitively winging it a lot of the times. It's a lot to hold. There's grief in that, and we don't always name it. How often do we have these types of conversations as healers and practitioners? The grief of not having elders, the grief of having to explain your work in a language that makes it marketable. You're in a way that's like whitewashed and capitalized. The grief of remembering something you were never taught, but still feel this inherent responsibility for living. This grief doesn't make us broken. It means we're awake in a world that's forgotten what to do with its awake ones. So what do we do? If we can't return to the way things were, I mean, in all honesty, I would love to. I would love to go back to, give me my hut and my village. Because life would be a whole lot simpler, okay? Like, less stress, less panic. But, we can't return to the way things were. And we can't wait for someone to guide us either. So how do we stay in this work without fragmenting ourselves? We begin by rebuilding rhythm. We stop looking outward for permission, and we start asking, what keeps you rooted? What holds you when no one else is holding you? And if you're quiet enough, talk to the ancestors, talk to the spirit guides, connect to source and have a fact conversation with them. For a lot of you, maybe, they've got some explaining to do. But allow yourself that space, create that as part of your rhythm as a naturally gifted healer. Create that for yourself. Stop looking on the outside for your answers. Look for them on the inside. Look for them in those connection points with source, with ancestors, with the guides. And look for it within your own knowing, because you know who you are. It's about remembering. So it's not learning, it's more unlearning so that you can remember. This, and it can be as simple as morning silence. Like take some 2 minutes, 5 minutes out of your morning and sit in that silence. And be there. Look for that connection. Seek it out. You're tuned to this. Like, you're built for this. It's going to be there as a natural part of who you are. Allow the space for that. Tending to the land. Go back to being a custodian of the land. That is our place as humans in general. Our place in this globe that we all exist on is we are custodians of the land. We're not owners. We don't own shit. Okay, I'm gonna say we don't own shit. We don't own the land. Nobody can logically own land. Nobody can own an animal. Nobody can own nature. So when you look at the trees in your backyard and you're like, oh, I own those. No, honey, you don't. Society has made you think that you do, but no, we're not here to be owners of the realm in which we exist. We are here to be custodians of it. We are here to live and be a part of us. We're supposed to coexist with us. So create that ritual for yourself, because that, I guarantee you, because I speak from personal experience, is where you will probably find most of your connection points. That is where you will hear the ancestors the loudest. That is where you will get your most profound, beautiful teachings. Communing with the land, connect with nature. You want to connect with source, go and sit outside, go hug a tree, go look at your animals that you coexist with differently. And you coexist with fluffy beings, not pets. Okay, we're not owners. We don't own nothing. And allow yourself to say no to the obligations, no to the societal demands that aren't in alignment with who you are. This path is not an easy one to walk, and saying no to the demands of everyday society is going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult because, again, we're triangles trying to fit into squares. But say no, letting part of your work rest when your spirit is tired. Like, you need to do that. When you go and train in the traditional sense, like, yes, you go through stretches where it's go, 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 and it's push and it's push and it's push, but there's also time where it's like, hey, you need to go and recharge. Like, and if you look back on your path, likely you've seen it, where the universe has given you 2 months of like no clients, like everything just comes to a grinding halt, and you're like, what is happening? Well, the universe has put you on vacation because you've been doing too much. Okay, it happens. I've seen it. So create that for yourself. Create that ritual for yourself, and create space for the grief. Like, acknowledge and grieve this aspect of being a healer in the modern day context, and naming what it is that you don't know. Your rhythm isn't a schedule. It's a relationship with yourself. It's the ability to feel when you're drifting and come back to yourself. It's not perfection, and it's not done in a way that's perfect, but in a way that's done consciously with intention. And this is where I want to bring in one of the most overlooked tools that we have, and that's tapas from the yogic tradition. And I don't mean tapas as in the Mediterranean dish. I mean tapas as in what's often translated to as discipline. Okay, but it's not discipline in the rigid, like, you 9 to 5 yang heavy. The way that many of us have learned that discipline is. Tapas is actually heat. It's effort. It's a inner fire that keeps you committed. It's an inner, like, burning, like a desire. If you ever think back to a goal or a project and there was just this heat inside of you that was like, oh, I need to do this, I have so much momentum, that's tapas. And it's not being committed to doing more, but to staying aligned with what matters. In the Yoga Sutras, tapas isn't a punishment, okay? It's a refinement, and it's the friction that comes from showing up to your practice when no one's clapping, getting up and doing the work when no one is looking, because most of your work is done in private. It's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be posted on TikTok and Instagram. It's the quiet strength of saying, I'll keep returning, not for achievement, but for clarity. This is tapas. I'll keep returning, not for achievement, but for clarity, for progress, for betterment. Without elders, without that external accountability, tapas becomes super helpful. Accountability and discipline, probably my hardest parts of walking this path, like holding myself accountable, staying true with the work. There's been times over the years where I've wanted to just throw in the towel and be like, the fuck with all of this, I'm done, like, no thank you. And then I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be doing this. But if I had that, external accountability, I would have stayed the path more consistently. So having a practice like tapas and really understanding the meaning of discipline, it becomes a valuable tool in the toolbox. It holds us when the world doesn't, and the world doesn't often hold us, right? It reminds us to stay close to our truth when everyone else is selling a version of their own truth. It teaches us to show up anyway, not to prove, but to practice. You show up to the practice of being a medicine person consistently. Toughest asks you, what do you keep showing up for, even when no one is watching? Where are you letting yourself drift, and what kind of rhythm would bring you back? And it's not about being strict. It's not about the rigidity, like I said. It's about being steady. And steadiness is what creates the internal container that we didn't inherit. If you're walking this path without elders, without that clear lineage, heck, without the map, man, like map would be nice, or an email to be like, hey, this is how it's done. You're not doing it wrong. Please understand, like, you're not failing at the path. You're just living in a society that this path doesn't fit with. You're doing something that used to be held by a village, by a community, by a support structure, by a system that recognized you. And now you're holding it in a body, in a calendar, in a world that very often just doesn't understand it. And it's not failure. It's devotion to the path of being a medicine person. But you can't do it without rhythm, without rest, without discipline that honors things like your nervous system. It's not work that overrides your nervous system. Our work as a medicine person is not supposed to be overstimulating and weight on our nervous system, because we should be taught different tools that help alleviate that side of the work that we do. So I'm going to leave you with this reflection. Where can you build a practice of rhythm, not for performance or, hey, check what I'm doing, but for presence, for being present as a medicine person? And where can you let toughest hold you, not to make you better, but to help you become clearer? We become the elders by living what they would have taught. I will see you next week.
Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of 20-Minute Self-Development. If today's reflections were helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, where we'll explore another tool or principle to support you in doing your own work as a healing practitioner. If you're looking for deeper support, my practitioner mentoring sessions are designed to help you refine your presence, integrate your self-work, and build a practice that's both ethical and sustainable. You can also visit the Tam Dillon Academy to explore all current programs and resources built specifically for space holders like you. Until next time, keep showing up for your own work, and remember, real growth is built on consistency, integrity, and self-responsibility.